Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Tales of Recovery. And this episode, I have again my most beautiful friend, Lisa, who's a writer and a poet and an intuitive coach. And we're taking up 18 months after our last session together, where you were in Iowa, traveling with the whole family, packing all your stuff, ready to go all the way to Costa Rica, into the jungle. And now you all are back in Bothell, Washington, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let's just pick up right where we were. So you were in Iowa, you're getting ready to leave.
Yeah.
This is 18 months ago, so 2021-ish.
Yes. No, 20. Wait, is that right? That's so crazy. I seriously feel like I have lived 100 lifetimes since then. It just like time has started to morph and move around and flicker, and so it's so wild. I feel like I live like 3 lifetimes in a day right now.
I mean, I can imagine that's kind of what happens when you travel. So I mean, because you girls were young and you guys just took them over there because the school was online.
Right. Yeah. So it was like mid-pandemic that we started like, oh gosh, all of our tethers, all of our cords to Bothell, Washington are starting to dry up, other than relationships, other than friendships.
Right.
But with work, school, all of those things. And so, yeah, the last time I talked with you, I was on my way to, I don't even know if we had a plan for how we were getting to Costa Rica when I talked to you. The 3 months that we stayed in Iowa preparing for it, those after we had sold everything, moved out of our house, and then drove to Iowa to stay with family. And I think at that time we were still like trying to figure out like what our house was going to be there. And we had a date to go. And but that was about it. And I was thinking about being with you during that time and how I was like in this really dark basement doing the podcast with you, and that's what it felt like in my soul. I was in the dark basement of my soul.
That's kind of how it happens.
Yeah, totally. And we were living with my partner's brother and sister-in-law, and had both of our young kids there. So my youngest is just about to turn 8. My oldest is 14 right now. And so they were, just a little bit younger than that. And we just had no idea what we were heading out to. We thought that it just felt like it was a time for us to go away. We'd been in Bothell for 10 years and working at East Lake Community Church for 10 years, or my husband was and had been, and me very involved in that. Mm-hmm. And then that iteration of it kind of drying up. And then it just felt like, I remember feeling like, oh yeah, Costa Rica, wouldn't that be so great? Just like so much relief and sunshine and just being on vacation for 6 months. I think that at the time we were like, we're going to be there for 6 months, and we didn't know how. We just kind of knew that was the plan. And I had this feeling in the back of my mind of like, we're going on this journey together, but we're going by ourselves too, like each of us in our family. And I had one of my friends pull a tarot card for me, and it was the Tower. And I don't know if the Tower is, she pulled it. Yeah, she pulled it and she was like, oh,
good luck.
Okay. And when she pulled it, I knew because I already knew before that this was going to be a stripping down of everything. It was just so disruptive. And, like when you pull yourself out, we were talking about, being in the system right before we got on this podcast, and then when you pull yourself out of the system, out of the American system, you pull yourself out of a job that's paying you a salary. And I pulled myself out of a job that was paying me a salary right before COVID. All of those things, all of those like kind of like adult figures taking care of you, the government, jobs, all of that stuff. And then you set out on your own to a country that we never even visited, Costa Rica, before we decided that we were going to move there. And we for sure got the things that we wanted, that we thought that we were going there for, which was rest, sun, our bodies healing. There was something just so sweet and kind about Costa Rica to go through the things that we went through, but there was just a lot of dismantling of relationship structures
Mm.
in going to Costa Rica. Like being here and being part of such a big organization like Eastlake and having so many people around there, it's just a lot of stimulation and distraction and working and pushing, even though it was such a beautiful environment to do it all in, it was still a lot of pressure. And then going to Costa Rica, all of a sudden, there was so much time and so much space that it was really difficult to ignore what our family looked like.
Everything starts bubbling up.
Everything starts bubbling up. Yeah. Like you can feel it, right? You can feel it when whenever you go away, that and you disrupt. And I talked with one of my mentors, like I think we were 3/4 of the way through Costa Rica, and she was like, I mean, there's just no way for the shit to come out when you disrupt it like that. You broke the mold. You broke the mold for your family. And so there's no going back into it. And like being on the other side of that statement, like of that knowing of it, and all the seeing that I see right now, looking at our family, it was a hell of a ride, and it still is such a settling that needs to happen after all of this disruption, all the disruption and the crumbling and the deconstruction and the the losing without really feeling like you're in control of the losing, that it's just like slipping.
Do you think you could elaborate on that? Because I'm imagining kind of like, okay, I remember seeing all those beautiful pictures of you in Costa Rica, like the house where you stayed at and they had a pool and all those ridiculous bugs that you would take pictures of that I was like, what is that? Looks like a dragon, like
yeah,
a
totally.
serpent, like a mythical figure, and then like the monkeys going outside, and then but not having like, I'll be right back, I'm gonna go grab coffee, or I'm going to 7-Eleven, or I'm going to the mall, or I'm going to the movies, so just
Yeah. What you're talking about in Costa Rica, that, oh gosh, I had such beautiful times in Costa Rica. It was such healing, beautiful, rich experiences there. I think that's what I mean when I say it was such a kind place to us to have all of these internal structures kind of fall apart, and then you go out into nature and just
regulate.
regulate, yes, calibrate. Yeah. It was almost like the only way that we could do it in the way that we did it so intensely was because we had such a mothering, nurturing landscape around us to hold us. I have this poem that talks about just like the sopping wet bosom of the hillside that we were on, that's what it felt like, was just this nurturing motherly energy when it felt like, whoa, all of the stuff is just slipping away, and a lot of it was like in my partnership with David, just seeing, because I think part of it was like my body was healing, our bodies were healing. And so when you have these like kind of like intense seasons of healing and soothing and calming, like a layer gets healed and then it almost like flakes off, and then there's the thing underneath it. And so as things are being healed and kind of flaked off and like, okay, that's evaporated or recycled or transmuted, and then there's this next layer there. And so for me, a lot of codependency enmeshment things were ready, like ripe for healing during Costa Rica. A lot to do with and still it feels like it's very potent right now that I'm in this season of healing from a lot of things with my dad, a lot of the ways that we were unhealthily enmeshed with each other, dependent on each other. And when you have those patterns with your parents, but you don't really learn about them. And then you become an adult, and then you just do all those things with all of your adult people. And
Yeah.
then you do all those things with your kid people, and all the ways that, like, in codependency, we were talking about control earlier too, like with the house and stuff like that. And, like all of these things where we're codependent for control, we need to know all the ins and outs so that we can have control, so that I feel safe, so that I
Yeah.
know what's going on in your head all the time, so that I know that I'm not in trouble, or, and I think with
Ah,
all of our other friendships kind of out, vacuumed out, then it was just like this petri dish of what's here in the microscope, looking at all of those things.
did you guys have like therapy sessions down there, or was it just like just using your own communication and seeing like, okay, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I'm seeing? Because
Yeah, it was so solo. It was in such isolation that we were doing all of this work. Like, I was really barely on social media very much, other than putting up nature things, because it was where I was finding all of my comfort. It was what I wanted to share with people. It was like how I could share with people, because the things that were going on underneath were so scary. I likened it to when I deconstructed from Christianity, or deconstructed my faith, and in
Right.
Christianity, and pulling all of those things apart and looking
Oh,
at them, and do they belong? This was like another major deconstruction when it comes to my relationships, who I am in my relationships. What do I need and want here? Like, what do I really need versus what I want? And having your needs kind of constantly change as awareness has come up around, like, I don't know that I actually need that from that person. Once you start finding those things in, like, validation and value and worth in yourself, and then when that starts happening, and you're in relationship with people that are kind of like bendy and leaning, and you start finding that stuff inside of yourself, and that leaves a vacuum, and then the other person falls because of
right.
that, and then my partner would do that and learn in something, and then I would kind of like slip, because that structure isn't there anymore, you know and then all the work of, like, finding that inside of myself, David finding that inside of himself, um it was so much dancing around. It felt like, dancing alone, dancing together, and I mean, sometimes days of not dancing with each other at all, and then towards the end of that, I just had this, like, major awakening around my sexuality and my worldview in life, and coming out as queer. That happened, like, right at the end of Costa Rica. It just felt like all of the layers healing up and flaking off, and then seeing, oh yeah, this is underneath here, and I also don't feel afraid of it anymore. I was afraid of it for a
Yeah.
couple of years. Like, oh my
Yeah.
God, what does this mean? And what does this mean for my marriage? And what does this mean for my kids?
Yeah.
If I'm attracted to women, if I'm attracted to men and women, if I'm attracted to more people than my partner, like, what, at the beginning, that felt so scary.
Yeah.
And then I think after healing quite a bit, and it all just feels like so much love. Like, it just feels like love, and queer love feels like the loveliest way for me to love, and the juiciest way for me to love. And so after Costa Rica, it was kind of like this. We didn't come straight here. We went to Iowa for 3 months, and then Bothell for 3 months, and then we were in Oregon for 3 months, and then Oroville, Washington, which is northeastern Washington, like in the frigid cold for the winter. Like, we really like dove into the seasons this last year after Costa Rica. And it has been this, like, major integration of being on the mountaintop in Costa Rica. And the mountaintop was not all fun. There was a lot of a lot of insight and growing and tearing and ripping and healing, all of those things at the mountaintop. And then coming back, it has felt like this major integration of the awakening that happened in Costa Rica. So this last since May, I think, of last year, we've been in the US traveling around, and each town, each state that we're in, each little community that we happen upon, all different kinds of lessons.
Right.
And so it's felt like there's been so much going on in my little nuclear family system, in that family field of recalibrating where we're going to be for like this next half of our life. So we're right at the what is it, midlife awakening.
Midlife. Okay, let's go. No more wasting time.
the midlife fuck. You know. And so it feels like we're setting ourselves up for the second half of life, that it's just another major mile marker in like seeing how beautiful all of the ways that we have operated up until this point, how good they've been for us, how well they've worked to get us to this point.
Yeah.
And because we broke the mold a little bit ago, and you know, like you think about a mold and how that contained you, right? And then you break it, and then your shape changes.
Yeah.
And that's happened for me, that's happened for David, my partner, and that's happened for my two kids too. And so what's been really interesting is like coming back into the system here, being in these new shapes, and the system's like still the system. And so
Yeah.
you know, it's like how much can I participate in this being in this shape?
No, it's horrible. It's like coming back, I try to be like aware, okay, this is the system, we have to hack it, we have to honor what it sustains, and kind of be a part of it and help, right? Not just run away and hide, because I just want to run away and hide. But I wanted to ask you, because how did you navigate this with the kids? I mean, I'm listening to you and I'm like, yes, you went to Costa Rica, but I didn't go to Costa Rica. But a lot of the people that I know had the same, and I think this deconstruction of this patriarchal, like husband and wife thing comes right after, like, you dismantle all of this, programming from the Christian religion. Okay, I don't believe this anymore. I don't even believe in anything. And then you're like, wait, what kind of spiritual I am? So then you kind of start to pick up different tools that you've known, and you leave certain dogmas, but you create your own thing. And then you're like, but wait a minute. Because these Christian things for thousands and thousands of, or hundreds and hundreds of years have mapped the map, or made this map of how you're supposed to be a partner in this, woman-man relationship. And I was like, Hula and I almost were like, that's it, brother, I'm out.
Yeah.
Last year in March. And it was a horrible 2-3 months.
Yeah.
It was intense, but then I was like, oh, okay, it's just because I don't want to do things like this. I don't want to be in patriarchy. I don't want this violence. I don't want these roles. I want to do whatever I want, honoring me, and I want you to do whatever you want, honoring you. And then we come together as partners. And the kids were just like, what?
Yeah.
Like, my parents are crazy. Are you getting divorced? Are you staying together? Or what's going, So I'm just curious to know. I feel like you're a lot softer and more, in tune with the softness that you portray. I tend to be a little bit way too punk rock and aggressive sometimes. So I'm like, okay, how did you navigate this with the babies,
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh, there's so many things in what you said. I just got so excited about all of it. And first off, God, I'm so fucking soft right now. Just so tender all the time. And feel so strong and so powerful doing all of this work. But one of the things that you said, like that separating and then coming back as partners, like I remember doing that with my family. like individuating around 35 years old. Like and I feel like it should happen so much earlier than that, right? But that's just when it happened for me, when I started going to therapy and all of that. And then when this stuff started happening in my partnership, it felt like the same thing, that we have been told that once you get married, like specifically in the Christian
Or
tradition.
Catholic, yeah.
Right, yeah. And I guess I say that specifically because it's really the only one that I know. I don't know other ones, right?
Yeah.
But in the one that I grew up in, it was like the goal is to get married, first of all. And I was married at 19 because I'm a good student. You know what I mean? I'm a fucking great student. And so getting married is like the thing. And then once you get married, you become one, right? You become equal, and you must be equally yoked, kind of in all things, right? That's what it feels like, is like if you become one person and you're equally yoked, like all of that stuff, then you kind of lose yourself and you become this entity together. And it feels like an entity with a portion much bigger for the male in it, you know? I mean, I feel like a lot of the things that I'm learning about right now are because of this. I'm in deep gratitude for all of the things that I've learned, all of the ways that I was shaped into the way that I was shaped.
Yeah.
Through marriage, being a Southern daughter, you know, a good worker, a good student, all of those roles, the way that they shaped me, and they shaped me pretty small, pretty tiny, and petite and perfect, you know? And I feel so grateful for that right in this moment. It, like, gives me chills. Like, I have chills all over my body thinking about the ways that I've broken out of that, you know? And the ways that I've broken out of it with that punk rock, like, fuck you, I can't do this anymore. I feel so grateful for all of the ways that I've been able to do that in anger and irritation and frustration and deep hurt and sadness, all of that, you know. I needed all of those things there. And this time in my life right now, it does feel like I'm super soft, you know. And I think it's because I've taken ownership over a lot of these things. I don't feel like I'm a victim to them anymore, that people are doing things to me anymore. And so I can be soft towards everyone around me because they're not doing anything to me.
You understand.
There's a maturity that's happened in the integration after Costa Rica, which has been difficult. And you know, I can feel kind of bratty and like stubborn sometimes. And it's so much easier when it's everyone else's fault. But when, you know, the truest thing is that I have to take responsibility for these things if I don't want them to be in my life anymore, you know? So, but with kids, right? With kids, this season of traveling has been very difficult on my kids. There have been really beautiful things. Like, our family has grown so much in the traveling together. And because David and I were going through so much during it, like, we didn't know if we were going to end up being together throughout this many times throughout it, because we're starting to see how fucking different we are, like, so different. And I mean, until like 2 or 3 years ago, I thought we were exactly the same. And that is not like, it's not even an exaggeration. I really thought that we were exactly the same. We didn't fight about anything because we just agreed about everything. We liked doing the same things. And on some level, all of that is true. And we also, both of us, have found out that we just do not like to rock the boat, especially when it comes to our really intimate, safe places, you know. So we've gotten better at that. We're pretty good at it right now.
I mean, it takes practice.
It takes practice. And it takes practice, and it takes practice so that you can learn trust. It takes entering into that and continually saying, yes, I'm going to let this change me. Yes, I'm going to let this change me. Yes, I'm going to let this, like, soften me. I'm going to let this soften me, you know. I'm going to let our differences soften me. And I'm going to stay in alignment with myself here too, because I know. And yeah, and I trust that our relationship can handle both of us being as big as we possibly can, you know?
Yes, that's a good one.
Yeah. And so with our girls though, they've been around for all of these conversations, because in Costa Rica, there was actually, in all of our houses, there has been no privacy. For some reason, we keep choosing these houses. Like Costa Rica, it was all screen windows. There were no glass windows. And so all of our coaching, everything was happening with all of our family being able to hear it. So
Mhm,
I'm talking to a client about issues that David and I are having, as an example, real,
mhm.
because I'm very real with my clients.
Yeah, yeah,
They get to know all parts of me coming into a session with me, because I'm not ashamed of any of it, and I think
yeah.
all of it's helpful. And but so everyone's listening to that. My girls are listening to it, David's listening to it, and then we have follow-up conversations after, you know. And with our girls too, this feels like an important piece. They kind of fell through the cracks a little bit too, because David and I were so involved in what,
Mm,
it felt so scary, the things that we were questioning, you know.
yeah.
And so our oldest went on their own journey this last 18 months into all kinds of spaces that I didn't know anything about, just
Mm,
totally blind to and totally numb to, didn't want to see. And this is hard for me. Like it's a humbling thing to admit, you know, because I want to be good at everything, and I want to be perfect at everything, and I want to do it all right, and I don't want to hurt anyone. This is how I want to heal.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. No messes.
No
Everything
messes.
controlled and clean.
Right, right. And with my oldest, they go by Alex now.
Okay.
So they've come out as non-binary, and it's the most beautiful, precious journey to
Mm,
walk alongside of, and also has been scary. And I've been jealous of them being able
mm,
to talk about things in the way that they do, and then also really ashamed about the ways that they couldn't talk to me because they didn't feel safe with me, you know,
okay.
or they didn't feel connected to me because I was gone. And, you know, I kind of have been gone for like on and off 5 or 6 years
Mm,
since I started going to therapy, you know. And so my oldest has kind of had to raise themselves a bit. And this is kind of a new revelation to me, just getting into Bothell and seeing, almost like taking stock of what damage happened here,
mhm,
you know. And I say damage in just what it is, you know, like, and what trauma is like, and not that
mhm.
there's anything unavoidable about it, you
Yeah.
know, like I can't,
It's a journey.
it's a journey, and I can't protect every part of it, and I've got to be okay with me messing up, you
Yeah.
know, and messing up, doing the best I can, you know.
Yeah.
And so it's been right now, the dynamics of our family feel really great and still difficult. Like there's still things that are untangling right now, and still ways that we don't know how we're going to function with each other, how this is going to like look in this, all these things that are going on internally for us, how this is going to ripple out into our family. And so our kids have matured so much through COVID. I imagine, as all of our kids have. I mean,
Right.
you know, coming back
Yeah.
and talking to people and coaching people throughout, there hasn't been that much difference other than the location. You know,
Yeah.
it feels like everyone is on this dark night of the soul,
Yeah.
you know,
Like it's
the
speeded. Everything was a quantum leap of, wait a minute.
quantum leap. Yeah.
This isn't what it used to be. Just da da da, 7, 8, 7 to 5, do the thing, check the box. Here we go.
Hmm. Yeah. And kind of seeing like it might have never been the way that I thought it was.
True.
Right.
It was all
Like,
just the show.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, so like my youngest is just the wisest little soul. And So fun. So both of them are so fun because they have all of this room to express right
Yeah.
now. And I thought for a little bit there I didn't want them to do that. I wasn't allowed to do that growing up, and anytime I did, it was
It's
disruptive. It's
dangerous.
dangerous for sure.
Yeah.
And that's been a lot of unlearning, and then that quantum leap learning that's happened in the last year or two, that it's I mean it's pretty spectacular. I really enjoy it, and it's really hard. you know
Yeah.
it's all the
I think
things.
it's hard no matter what. It's not hard if you're not paying attention. If you're just fucking around drinking margaritas and just not even thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're in it
Yeah.
and if you're paying attention,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard.
Yeah, it is
But
hard. Yeah.
I always see like this one yoga teacher that I have. There's like this really intense class she teaches on Thursday mornings at 6 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And when I go, I'm always like, oh God. And one time she's like, I hope you didn't come here thinking you were going to be comfortable in yoga. I'm like, oh, she read my mind? And it's about finding, comfort in the uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm okay now with it being hard because I got in a lot of trouble avoiding hard.
Yeah, I know, right? Yes, yes, yes. And then the other part of this too, that I feel like I knew that it was going to be a theme throughout all of my traveling, and I just was so irritated that this was part of it, which is so funny to think about right now. But just the idea of playing through all of it, like I have been addicted to suffering, and things must be hard too, and I think I'm just coming to the realization that life is hard already. Like, it's hard for us to know all the things that we know,
Yeah.
to know about all of the suffering, to know that we're going to die. Lucy, my youngest, this was the year of her becoming aware of death and separation. And that was so difficult to walk through with her. And there's no avoiding that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we can try, but it's just going to keep coming back to us, until we say yes to it, until we say, yes, this happens. And at some point she kind of had to say, yes, okay, I see it. I see that this happens. I see that you might die before me.
Yeah.
And it's so painful. Like when I got a glimpse of what she was really dealing with, and that's what this other side of this is integrating, is being able to see clearer what's happening with the people in my family too, not just what's happening inside of me. But this awareness, it is painful, and there is suffering. And I think for some people, and I'll just speak from my experience, like there's just so much suffering growing up. I think I talked a lot about this in the last time that we spoke, but just kind of like my story, there was a lot of loss and pain and a lot of chaos and a lot
You lost your mom very early.
Yeah. And my dad's second marriage was really abusive, and there was a lot of coming and going and moving in houses, and with sexual abuse, like all of these different things. There was so much suffering and loss in my childhood. And it became an expectation that I had, and comfort and reliability.
Your brain gets this like
wired for it.
Okay.
Yeah. And and it was almost like I grew up and became an adult thinking that the dynamic world that we live in, that changes all the time, is chaos. Like, it's chaos in the way that my childhood was chaos. So I equate, and I'm just thinking about this right now. I don't know that I've ever thought of this before, so we'll just see how this lands. But growing up, and then, not having an adult to take care of you anymore, to give you food, resources, love, all of that just kind of built in. And then you start seeing, oh yeah, like this world is changing all the time, and people come and go all the time. Like, it's still the same as as back there. And that felt so chaotic. But the more that I'm becoming comfortable in my discomfort, becoming comfortable in my harder emotion, my more challenging emotions for myself, like anger and irritation and frustration and sadness, grief, all of those things, the more I'm becoming okay that those are just a regular happening of being an adult, and that they're not an indicator or a warning light of something bad going on or something or a problem. That these are just waves that come in because it's hard to know all that we know, you know? And and so I feel this shift that's happened in the last 18 months of like almost like surrendering the suffering to, you know, that I don't always have to learn in hard places, that I can learn in joyful places too. The word that keeps coming up for me is enjoyment, that I want to live my life in more enjoyment. So even when I'm sad, angry, frustrated, irritated, overwhelmed, stressed out, worried, the more challenging emotions, right? That I find a way to enjoy them.
Yeah, because you're alive and
Yeah, well,
aware.
even just like, how do I, instead of pushing this away, how do I drop into this experience right now? You know, like if I'm in a place where I'm just completely overwhelmed and I have a to-do list that has 15 items on it, you know, what two can I do here? And then what can, and how can I take care of myself? Because I accept right now that I'm sad, instead of saying I shouldn't be sad right now, I should be happy right now.
Right.
I accept that I'm sad. And I want to see what the sadness is here to show me.
Befriending all the emotions. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And in that is enjoyment, right? So because when you can drop into this challenging feeling, whatever it is, and you can get curious about where it pokes in my body, and you can get curious about, when was the last time I had this feeling that feels so similar to this? You know, like you can get curious about it. It's almost like being out in nature. Like I just love being out in nature so much. And you can totally be out there and thinking about all the other things that you need to do, or you can enjoy your time out there. You can drop in. And so I think, right, like what I'm talking about is like enjoyment is dropping in.
Into the present.
Into all the sensations that are going on. Like it's really sensual what I'm talking about, you know? And so I have a friend who talks about eroticizing everything. And it was kind of the first time that I thought about like eroticizing, sensualizing, sensitizing these things that are more difficult for us. And it can be different. It is different for every person, you know? So the things that feel difficult, how do I enjoy them? How do I enjoy, if it's something that can't be changed,
right?
If it's something that is just here, then how do I enjoy it? And so I feel like what I'm so excited about right now is like this, it feels like a shift in the winds, like and it feels collective to me. I don't know, but in the season, right? Like coming into spring after a really harsh winter, it feels like for me and others, I don't know if it's everyone, but it feels like it was fucking hard. It feels like it's so harsh and so refining, so clarifying. And then coming into spring and like, okay, we've got all these like these precious stones that we've refined and buffered down and gotten shiny. And we're a little like ragged and torn from it, you know, like we're a little like worn out.
Yeah.
And I'm imagining this springtime with all the flowers blossoming, and I've been going on so many walks. And then this just like deep refreshing, and that we're going to be able to move into this space of learning through pleasure, you know, through our senses, through sensory experiences and connecting with people. And I feel so excited to be in those spaces with other people. You know, like I've been gone for so
face
long.
To face.
Yeah, and in isolation. And so many of us have been in isolation. And so I just have this really cute picture of all of us kind of like opening up our doors, and we're just like so disheveled, and we've got these little tiny precious jewels like cupped in our hands, you know? And then it's like, all right, who else has been doing this? You guys want to talk about it? You guys want to like share our like road weary stories with each other? And even you and I before this podcast get like being able to talk for a few minutes was like, yeah, this feels good. This feels good to connect and talk about and commiserate what's going on. It really does.
I'm like, why don't I do this more often? I get like, oh, it's too much work. It's this and that. No, this is. Yeah, I love what you said about the connecting to people, the sensory experiences. It's like, I like to call it conscious embodiment, right? Like your conscious embodiment, not avoiding. And, I come from a story of addiction and then addiction to freaking certainty in the stupid church.
Right.
And then I'm constantly like, no, don't run. Just stay with it. My mantra is please stay. Because I want to run and run. It's like, please stay. So put hand on heart. I'm going to stay. This is difficult. This feels like this. Like you said, get curious. And also when I'm connecting to other people, like right now, this feels so like, feels just so good.
It feels so good.
But I can be with people sometimes and be like, okay, why am I feeling like I'm acting? Okay, why do I feel tense? Okay, notice your shoulders. Okay, soften. You can be you. If they don't like you, that's okay. Like you don't have to regulate anybody or keep anybody safe. You're safe. And I have to do like this whole thing and then get into my body and get curious about it. And then sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I notice it now. So.
Yeah, I think that's so beautiful. I do that almost every morning and probably a few times a day. Did it right before we got on, right? When I was like looking around and like, oh my gosh, my house is just a fucking mess again. And getting curious about that instead of flying off the handle and sending a text to my partner, hey, you need to clean the house while I'm doing this podcast right now so that I'm not freaking out when I come out, like I got curious about it and I was like, oh, I think I'm just nervous about what's about to happen right now. And then doing all of those things to like calm yourself down, getting curious about it, conscious embodiment.
Yeah, no, I like 11:15, Julio calls me and he's like, oh, tell me how this work. And I'm trying to listen. And I'm like, I can't talk right now because I have to figure out this because I have a podcast in 50 minutes. Gonna call you. Sure, no problem. It's like, oh, I did it again. I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't. And he knows by now, but it's still like, 11:15. May I speak with you later? I'm just not used to. It's like something I'm learning.
Practice.
It's not in my practice yet. That's another yoga teacher I have. I can't do that handstand. It's not in your practice yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that talking about connection and like springtime and I've got like a few things coming up that I'm so excited about. That I've got a whole year of groups that I'm so excited about doing in person. I've been doing virtual things for 2 years now. And it was such a great thing for me because I was nervous to be with people before COVID. It was a scary thing for me to sit down one-on-one and I was getting better at it. And then everything switched to virtual and then doing coaching virtual. And now I'm doing some coaching sessions, walking out in nature. And that feels so good. And being able to be with a person face to face is a totally different thing, And then I've got the 3 groups that I'm dreaming about right now are in this springtime. I've got a group called Sitting Around the Fire, which just everything that we talked about going from winter to spring. This is what this group is about, sitting around the fire and telling our tales of what this winter has been like and what we feel like we've learned from it and what we think it all means. And then also like it's for 6 weeks. So being able to be with a group of people for 6 weeks and hear about how was your week this week and, and the ways that we can relate to each other when we're telling story, and learning and all of those and all of the like energetic things that happen when we're sharing and when we're being generous and when we're being vulnerable. with each other and being able to connect authentically, like how that hits your body and your body just soaks it in and absorbs it, and it's so good.
You can eroticize it.
Eroticize
I eroticize groups like that. I'm like,
yeah.
this is so fucking good.
I'm so excited. And then I've got a retreat in June 3rd through the 5th that's in Washington. And a group of 8 to 10 of us are going to be in a cabin, and it's going to be like a weekend away, like getting away. And all we're going to do is have fun the whole time. We're just going to play the whole time, because that's what I do every day is I play all day long. Like no matter what activity I'm doing, that's the goal for me, is to get into a state of pleasure and enjoyment for it. And so that's what we're going to do, is we're just going to bop around all weekend long. And the cool thing about it, is that I'm going to have people tapping into their intuition and knowing about what they want to do. Like there's all these things that you get to do. What does your body and spirit and heart and mind want to do right now? And being able to debrief and communicate about all of the nuance that's going on when a person's making a decision, getting to know what their yes sounds like, and then being able to communicate it to other people, I feel like is really important in solidifying what that feels like. And so we're going to play in the water, on the water, go on hikes, make art, drink coffee together, make food together, dance in the kitchen. Oh my God, it's going to be so good.
That sounds so good.
And then the other two groups that I'm dreaming about are a Play With Me group, which is this summer going around to different little fun spots in the Pacific Northwest Washington area and playing outside in nature. And then in the fall time, I'm going to do like a crafting group so that we can just kind of sit around. And so like based on the seasons, kind of what does this season call for right now? How can we in our animal bodies sink into the natural rhythm of what's going on right now and the jewels that are there. Yeah,
that sounds amazing. Maybe I'll come join you for the summer one. I'm like, I want to go up and play.
I know. Well, what's going to be cool about it is if you're around, I think I'm going to do like a drop-in too, so you can sign up for the whole thing or just drop in for one thing. And so if you're ever just around, you can totally just come.
I'm in and drop in.
Come and play with me.
Yes. So good. It's so important to have these because they also, as you're saying, like, what does your yes look like, right? How do you allow women to feel this? It's a lot of noticing how often you don't say yes to you. Yeah. And how like you're so restricted and so like hard on yourself. And so, creating space to play and to soften that is just, man, it's just, you're saving humanity, Lisa.
I know. I feel like I want to change the world, and I want to do it exactly how I'm doing it. This like little bit at a time, one heart at a time. It feels so good. It's so great.
Thank you. Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's what we come here to do. I feel, and I just wanted to mention real quickly when I heard you say about how, for those 5 years that you've been in therapy, you kind of didn't pay attention to the kids or they did their own thing.
Yeah.
I want to honor that as a mother, because it's hard, but I do want to say, and I'm like about to start crying here.
Yeah.
I've been in therapy for so many years and trying and doing and trying to be present and being with the babies and doing that. And so I think the best thing a mother can do is run for our own personal healing and fulfillment. And then the kids are watching. I think it's so much more potent than me just sitting there meeting all their needs, making sure, because they need that time of independence. And they have to grow into their own journey, what they chose to come here for, or whatever they came here for. And so I feel that, like when you said that, I was like, oh, I need to say something because, but now I'm just like, it's, and I learned that from Brene Brown, by the way.
Me too. Me too. That's so funny. I was just about to say
The Gift of Imperfect Parenting. Did you read? Was it that one?
No, I'll have to tell you, continue, and I'll tell you where I got it from her.
Well, I read like this little thing called The Gift of Imperfect Parenting because I I used to read all the millions of books, 7 steps to be a better parent, 7 steps for the perfect kid. And none of them worked because I was a freaking hot mess with all my trauma and my expectations and my limitations. And I wasn't allowing myself to eroticize life. I did. I've always eroticized life, to be honest. I mean, I enjoyed those babies. I've been a good mom. I know, there's shit that I'm healing in my family, ancestrally, with my mom, grandma, all Mexican women, and so and with the parents, the dad, the grandpa, it's just, I'm in it.
Yeah.
And being in it is messy. But I do know that when I heard that from Brene, I was like, okay, forget all these stupid books. The books aren't working.
Yeah.
If I'm calm and if I'm happy and if I'm okay, and if I'm crying and sad and the kids are seeing, like my kids would see me weeping on the floor, mom, and I'd just be like, it's good to weep. It's fine, we're grieving. My mom was dying. It was horrible. Her body's falling apart. Come on, kids, we got to go. Rub her feet. But nothing. Ugly is part of it. We have to be in this, we're going to be, love is punk rock.
Yeah.
You got to get in. So I just honor that as a mom. When we're doing the work, kids benefit.
Yes.
As long as we're not, of course, doing the work in India away for 10 years, maybe not. But you know what I'm saying? Like, they're still at home. We're still eating dinner together. I'm still driving them to school and games, and we're still.
And they're seeing all of it, right? Yeah. They're seeing every single part of it. So when it happens for them, it doesn't feel unusual. It doesn't feel like there's something wrong, Yeah, the thing that I read, I can't even remember what book it was in, but it was this tiny little excerpt where Brene talked about experiencing her mom going to therapy for the first time and how her mom set out the template for them to go and do that work themselves. And I don't even remember very much about it except for that part. That was the part that stuck with me. And I read it like right as I was in the middle of going to therapy kind of intensely and feeling like I am just doing a shit job at everything right now. And I didn't have the capacity to understand that I was going to get out of it, at that time. It felt like my shit was so deep that I'm going to be here for the rest of my life undoing all of this, And here's the other thing that I wanted to say too, just about that is like what I've seen in my kids, I don't feel like we're full circle, but we are in some kind of like completing some cycle. This one chapter, completing this chapter. And
but I'm plugging in the computer because
sure. What I feel like I'm able to see right now is that my kids feel like they can be all parts of themselves right now, and what I was thinking too is like I remember having these conversations with David and not having capacity to explain to my kids what these conversations mean even, and thinking in my mind, oh my gosh, what are they? I know that they can hear everything. They're absorbing all of this, what do they think about what's going on? And my initial thought being around fear, that's what that is. What are they thinking, And now it's kind of like, oh man, I wonder what they're thinking about, mom opening up and showing her love and excitement, and mom coming home excited about things, and I've heard my kids say multiple times, gosh, mom, I love it when you smile. Mom, I love it when you laugh. I love it when your friend's over here because I see you light up, and when I see their face expressing that, it is authentic and real. There's not a tinge of, oh, you don't do this with me, da, 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 da. They just see me doing what I'm doing. And because I'm doing what I want to be doing, that there is an enjoyment of it. And and I think another part of it is that because I only do what I want to do and I spend a lot of time with them too, they can trust that I want to be with them because I really want to be with them, And it just takes some journeying to get to these places, right? Like it takes going away to come home. It takes going away
That's
to
right.
know what home feels like,
Yeah.
right?
Losing yourself to come back in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's courageous work. Yeah.
Yeah. It
Mm.
feels like it.
No, oh shit. It is. Yeah. Oh, I'm telling you. I'm like, is this ever gonna end?
Yeah, I don't
Like,
think so.
what the hell? Like I went to this, my husband and I with some teachers, we built this sweat lodge. We built at the Mezcal and this little property that my family has in Tecate. And it's one of the most fun things for me to do because, oh, my son is home. You're right there. But because I feel like I'm playing.
Yeah.
And so you go in there and yes, it gets really hot and it's a lot of work, you do, but the whole time, yesterday I was like, we got there at 10, got home at 9 and I'm like, I'm not even tired because it's so exciting for me. I feel like I'm playing, I'm eroticizing, I'm doing what I want. And the intention, so yesterday, you set an intention for, you're always paying attention, but what's the intention? So the attention goes towards someplace and not just scatterbrain like me, I'm aware. And then it's like, oh, but the intention really was that we all are aware of how we have this birthright to enjoy and pleasure and to be in the yumminess of life.
Yumminess of life, yes.
All of them are like, so because why not? Because you have to do certain things, you have to do the list before you can enjoy. No, we're gonna do like Lisa, and after 2 things on the list, play and enjoy.
We're gonna bop around. That's like my new life philosophy is, how do I bop around today? With all the things that I have to do, that I must do, and I'm gonna feel good when they're done doing them, and I'm gonna find a way to enjoy it or not, and it's gonna do its thing. But I just love the idea of like entering into each day with gratitude, finding the spaces to enjoy and the richness of this life, and the richness is like the depth of it. It's not just the high parts of it. Those are so nice. Those are so nice when they're around, and they're around more often than they're not for me right now, and I'm so grateful for them. And because they're around more often than not, I have to remind myself that the dark and the shadow and the more underbelly, the challenging stuff, these are the spaces that I feel like I want to be able to enjoy all of humanity, like all of my experience as a human.
Right.
And the thing is that I just have this like insatiable curiosity about all parts of it. And so I can't really say yes to one and not the other anymore.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's making life more enjoyable. For sure.
That's wonderful. I think that's how it's meant to be.
Yeah.
You'll have to come back in a few more months just so we can keep chatting.
Yeah, I would love to do that. I would love it.
And it's very encouraging. Last time we spoke, I had a lot of women tell me that was so intense and beautiful. And so I want you to know that you coming on here is, I think this always helps me and my guest.
Yeah.
Also, all those that listen, encourage, I hope this is encouraging for y'all, that it's fine to break down and figure stuff out as long as we're pursuing, what makes my heart feel safe and sometimes not safe, but just whole, and like I don't live for others. Yeah. It's just so ingrained, especially in those Mexicans, que la chingada. Well, thank you, Lisa, for hopping on. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please share, subscribe, tell everybody about it. Tell us what you thought. Let me know, and I'll see you next time on Tales of Recovery.